Hey there. So this is my adjustable box joint jig, and I'm going to show you all of the features about it and how it kind of works. And then we'll get into actually how to make this. It's actually quite simple. Only uses a small piece of particle board, MDF or plywood, and a little block of wood. So it makes really nice box joints, and it's adjustable so that if you cut your pin piece here a little bit too small, or you put it in a little bit the wrong place, instead of having to replace it or take it out and re-glue it or recut it, all you need to do is simply just loosen the thumb screw and slide it a little bit, and you can adjust the tightness or looseness of your box joint. And it will work with a number of different router bits. So you could put, in this case, it's a 3/8 inch router bit or a 5/16 inch router bit. You could put in a 1/2 inch, you could put in a 3/4, you could put in a 1/8, whatever you want. Okay, so basically what it consists of is we have just a base of plywood or flake board with 2 grooves in it for the slide to slide on. In our benchtop, we embedded these two T-tracks so that we could mount stuff, and including the fence for our router. So it becomes like a router table when we need it, but they're recessed down just slightly so that when we don't need it, we can put the router away and we have a nice flat surface to work on or to slide from the table saw. We can tighten these down and it locks everything in place, makes it nice and secure. Okay, so this is basically just a small piece. This was 18 inches wide by 10 inches deep, and we ran 2 3/4 inch dados in it. The slide is really not that difficult. It is a base piece with a 3/4 inch dado across the front. It's 5 inches wide, and it's also 18 inches long. And in the dado we mounted, you could put a solid piece. I had 2 small pieces of T-track in there, and a block. It's a simple 1.5 inch block of wood. I cut a little groove in the bottom, or 2 grooves in the bottom, so that this could ride inside the T-track to keep it from twisting. Don't know if it's really that necessary. Once you lock it down, it's pretty stable, but I did it anyway. Okay, so this slides in there. The pin piece here is held on with a screw. And inside here, I put a threaded insert, like you would get in IKEA furniture. Right, so we drilled it, put a threaded insert in there. And so now I can change this out for whatever size thickness box joint or thickness grooves that I want to do. So this piece here, the thickness of this pin should equal your router bit. Whatever your router bit's width is, that's what this should be. You might need to sand it down a little bit to get it exactly right. But once that's good, then it's just a matter of positioning it on here to make your joint nice and tight. Okay, so it slides in here. This double piece, I rounded the corners just to make it a little bit more comfortable, and so there's not something to catch on. The base. So instead of using hardwood down here, I just took T-track and flipped it around. So now we have T-track upside down that slides inside these dados. The T-track is perfect because it fits inside a 3/4 inch dado. It slides real nice. It's dimensionally stable. It doesn't matter what the humidity in here does. It doesn't matter what the temperature does. They will always slide nice. So we don't have to worry about that. And you'll see in the video how we installed them on there to make them fit in here just right. The only thing that I would do differently with regards to these and the way we did this is, in the future, I would set these up so that they were the same distance apart as the grooves on my table saw. And I would set these grooves to match that, whatever that would need to be. That way I could use this with a router bit if I want to do, or if I decide that I want to use a dado stack, and I could flip it over onto the table saw and use the table saw instead. So it would make it a little bit more versatile in that regards, especially if I wanted to do maybe like a 1/8 inch box joint. So I just wanted to use the thickness of a table saw blade kerf to do my grooves. That would be ideal instead of a thin little 1/8 inch router bit. So that would be one upgrade that I would do. Another upgrade that I am planning to do, and it'll be in the next video that we do for this, is this piece here. Once we put it into the groove and we lock it down, it's very stable. It's very secure. But when you want to make an adjustment, the adjustments are little micro adjustments. It's very tiny bit of movement is all you need, because it's amplified over however many different joints you have. The next thing I'm going to do is create another block that goes here with a thumb screw between them, so that you could then tighten this one, loosen this one, and make micro adjustments with a thumb screw to move this in and out in very small increments and accurate increments. That would be the only upgrade I would do for that. Okay, so I'll get to the video now and I'll show you how this is made. First thing, of course, is to go on the table saw and break down your sheet goods. But it's really quite simple. Like I said, it's 4 pieces of wood, 1 for the base, 1 for the slide, 2 for the back, and then your little block here. And I found that putting a little bit of wax in these grooves also gives it a little bit better slide. And that's about it. So a nice box jig, works really well, makes really nice joints, and a nice addition to the shop. It's small, it's easy, it doesn't take up a lot of room. You can put it underneath the bench and we're good to go. So without further ado, we'll get on with the video and I will show you exactly how I made this. Doesn't take very long. Stick to the video. If you like seeing how to make shop upgrades like this for your shop, hit the subscribe button or the like button. That really helps us out a lot and allows me to make more and more videos. I have a couple more videos. One video is on how we made this workbench. Really is a really nice upgrade to the shop, especially, I'll show you the movie over here. Especially these dogs. I saw these on Padula Studios YouTube video. He did this in his workbench. His workbench is a lot fancier than mine, but the idea was really good, so I copied it. And it's basically, instead of having to go searching for a can full of bench dogs to put in holes that stuff always seems to fall in, these stay nice and flush so nothing can go down inside there. And when I need to use one, you just push on it and they pop up. And I can pop up whichever ones I want, and then a second push pops them back down and they stay flush. So I'll have a whole video on how we did this bench. I'll show you that. Like I said, subscribe to the channel and you'll see more. We have a couple more jigs that we're working on, as well as shop upgrades like this and some really cool projects that we've been doing on the CNC machine. So stay tuned and I'll see you soon. Okay, so time to break down the sheet goods. This was literally a quarter sheet of melamine board that was left over from the bench build, and even of that, we didn't even use the whole thing. I cut an 18 by 10 inch board, a 5 inch by 10 inch board for the slide, and 2 4 inch by 18 inch pieces for the backstop. And that was it for the melamine. Here's all the pieces that we need. These 4 pieces, and then we're good to go. So it's just a matter of assembling these now. So first step is going to be putting the backstop together, and I thought it would be a good idea to just round the corners a little bit. Like I said before, just, I don't know, makes it a little bit more comfortable to hold. You don't have that sharp corner if you put your hand down. It gives it a little bit more of a professional look, I guess. So I screwed these two pieces together and then went to the bandsaw, rounded the two corners down, and just kind of smoothed them a little bit on the big belt sander. Once they were smooth, then it was ready to be assembled with the rest of the base. There's our Grizzly belt sander. Unfortunately, forgot to turn the dust collector on, so you can see the sawdust flying there. But it was only a couple seconds, and it was done. So. Now here is the bottom of the slide where those pieces are going to be fastened to. So before we fasten the backstop down, oh no, this is the base. So this is that 10-inch piece, and it's getting a groove about 4 inches from each end. And those two dados are 3/4 of an inch. That's a 3/4 inch dado stack in the table saw. And those are there to accept the slide. And now this is the base piece of the slide. And it gets a dado long ways across the front, and that is where that adjustment block will get mounted. But we have to cut that now because once we mount the backstop on it, we won't be able to run it on the table saw anymore. So we got that done. Double check to make sure that the track sits below the surface. We don't want that sticking up proud because then it will catch. So I checked it with that ruler. Then it's just a matter of marking off the backstop and drilling a few holes. Get that thing mounted onto the back. Pretty much flushed it up with the back of the base. Doesn't have to be real far back. In fact, it's better if it's not. And the holes, you can see I'm avoiding the middle there because the router bit's going to have to go through there to a certain degree. So you don't want any screws that could be a potential hit for the table or for the router bit. So I just stayed off to the sides. 4 screws each side should be more than enough to hold that nice and steady. And these screws are special. They're for MDF. They have a little bit of a point on them. They kind of self-drill themselves in. They work real well on MDF and flake board. You don't get that blistering or that mushrooming effect that you get with a regular, like a drywall screw. It's important for these screws also. I went back on some of them that are sticking up a little bit proud and countersunk them a little bit because, as you can see, they're going to have to slide on that base piece, and if they're sticking out, that's going to be a problem with it rubbing and getting caught. There's my 2 pieces of track that are going to become the slides. Put a little bit of CA glue on there just to kind of get them stuck in position while we put the screws in. I roughed them up a little bit with some sandpaper, hoping that thing would hold a little bit better. But it doesn't matter. We put 2 screws in each one, and they're not going anywhere. Also found that filing the corners, I don't think I showed it on camera, but filing the corners of those T-tracks made it so they tended to not, or they had less of a tendency to grab the edges of the flake board in those dados, and made it a lot more smooth, to travel a lot smoother. And like I said earlier, a little bit of wax in those grooves or in those dados also helps. A little bit of CA glue oozed out, and now is catching on the melamine. As you can see, it flakes right off with a chisel. So that was another, it was just making it a little bit sticky. You can see the file there. I just filed those things down, and now it's time to just mount that block. The block is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. It can be almost any size that you want, but that seemed to be a good size for me.
and I drilled in the end of it a hole and installed one of those threaded inserts so that it would accept a machine screw, and then it's a 1/4 20 machine screw that holds the pin spacement or spacer in place. And then you can interchange them, so we can switch out that 3/8 one for a 1/2 inch one or a 3/4 inch one or whatever we want, depending on the size of the box joint that we're going to create. Now, what I'm doing here is marking for the hole that the router bit's going to come up through. And you want this to be fairly far back. You don't want your slide to fall off the back end of the base, but it doesn't need to be very far forward because you don't have a whole lot of travel with these box joints. You're only really traveling the thickness of your wood, whatever you're making your drawer or box sides out of. So you want that to be, you see I had originally planned to be further forward and then realized that it could be further back would be better. So I drilled the hole most of the way through until the point of the Forstner bit just started sticking through, and then drilled from the other side. Just makes a neater hole. So that should give plenty of clearance. That's I believe a 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch hole. So whatever router bit we want to put in there, there's plenty of clearance for it. And then a little bit of lacquer thinners on our paper towels. All you need to clean up any pencil marks that are on the melamine. Works real well, goes real quick. So now it's time to try it out and actually make a box joint. First we have to make sure the bit sticks up as high as the material is thick. And I've adjusted the pin initially to where I think it should be. I'm going to slide the first piece up until it touches the pin and then make your cut. The second cut, you skip that groove over the pin and repeat. Now when you get to the end of this first piece, in this case this piece of maple, what you want to do is turn that piece around so the last part that you cut is, instead of in my right hand, would be in my left hand. Okay, I'm going to flip it, put it, now I'm going to set that groove over the pin, and that will index the walnut or the next piece properly. And that's just for that first cut. And then move the walnut over till it touches, and then hop it over in each one of the grooves. Now ideally the spacing between the pin and the router bit should be exactly the same width as the router bit is wide. If it's not, your joint will either be sloppy or too tight. In this case, you can see it's too tight. The pins are too big and they don't fit together. They won't fit into the groove that the router bit left. So I moved the little adjustable block over just a tiny bit, cleaned up those pins, and we should get a much better fit. And there you go. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it was informative. Hope that you can all now build a nice box joint jig for your own use. And if you want to see more jigs and fixtures and shop upgrades, please subscribe and stay tuned. We've got a bunch more coming. We've been filming, but we haven't been posting. The holidays and everything just kind of got us caught off guard, but you should start to see more stuff coming from here relatively soon. So thanks for watching, stay tuned, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks. Good night.